It's funny when I think about the business or I think about goals or accomplishments, I think about speaking it into existence. You know, praying over it, talking to God about it. Some people say put it in the universe. Some people say if you're vibing at a high frequency, high vibrations, the higher your vibrations, the different people that you'll bring into your life. And even talking about that, like speaking into existence, or like I was saying earlier, I remember being in the 8th or the 9th grade. Yeah, I might be dating myself right now, but the only way to have experience is to go through a lot of things. I remember coming home one day from school, and I picked up the phone book and I looked up Uptown Records in the phone book, and I called Uptown Records. And at the time, that's when Diddy was Puff Daddy, and he was just getting it going. But you know, his vibe was just going through the city so crazy, and what he was doing, he was just doing so much. And I remember being that guy that called the label. I called Uptown Records. I looked it up in the phone book, and I called Uptown Records, and I asked to speak to Puff Daddy. And the receptionist told me to hold on. And you know, I waited a couple seconds or whatever it was, and all of a sudden, somebody answered the phone. It was like, "It's Puff, what's up?" And I was type shocked that he even got on the phone, because even at that time, he you know, he was a big guy to me. But this is way before the mogul that he became. But when he answered the phone, "Puff, what's up?" And I just wigged out like a little kid, like, "Yo, my name is Roger. I got like 200 rhymes. I'm really, really good." And he hung up on me. And I remember, after he hung up on me, I remember laughing to myself, sitting on the couch at my parents' house. And I was laughing to myself, but then something said to me, maybe it was, you know, God, maybe it was the vibrations, frequency high, or whatever, however you want to describe it. But it said to me, "At least you got him on the phone." And that never left me. And as I kept going and growing, not even in the music business, because I wasn't in the music business yet, but as I kept growing with my craft, there was other times that I was around him, like I forgot what age I was. I want to say like 19 maybe. Being an idiot, my brother ruined my DJ equipment. Like I had my whole little home studio back then, and he knocked a glass of water in it and ruined a lot of it. And I was so mad, and I wanted to hurt him. And I couldn't get a hold of him. Everybody was keeping him away from me because they knew how upset I was. And I punched a window, and I ended up ripping my wrists up. I still got the scar today. It came out the shape of an S, real big, nasty situation. I thank God I still got a hand. But I met Puff through my man Chuck Bone. He took me to Daddy's House Studios, and Puff had the same injury for whatever reason. He cut his wrist doing something, and I had just gotten over my therapy, and he had the same gadget on his hand I had on mine. And I remember saying to him, like, "Oh yeah, it hurts like a mug, don't it?" And he was like, "Oh man, could you explain to them? They think I just be complaining and stuff, like this thing hurt." And he asked me what happened to my wrist, and I told him. And I told him the whole story about me and my brother. And then the one thing that bugged me out about that conversation, when he was leaving the studio, like it wasn't like he knew who I was like that. I was just somebody with Chuck. But when he came back and he said, "Yo, how's the relationship with you and your brother?" And I said, "Oh no, we good. And he said, "Yeah, man, family over everything, man, family over everything." And I was just like, wow, like even to have that conversation, you know, and he's who he is, and he comes back and asks me, you know, how's the relationship with you and your brother besides everything else or whatever the case may be. So that always stuck with me for some odd reason. And then you fast forward again, as I'm still diligent in my craft and moving forward, after a chance meeting with Divine Stevens and working with him and developing that sound, Puff hears the music we were making and says, "Who's this guy? Who is this guy? It sounds crazy. Like, who is this guy?" And Divine's like, "Oh, that's Raj. You know, you gotta meet him," and actually sets up the deal for me to go work with Puff in the Bahamas. And this is when Puff does know who I am. And it's funny, I've never told him any of these stories. I don't think he's ever remembered me from any of these chance encounters, and he shouldn't. You know, as big as he is, it's one thing to be a person that knows everybody, but it's another thing for you not to know anybody and everybody knows you, you know? So when I met him in the Bahamas and we got to working on Satisfy You and P2000 and just different records, that whole Forever project, that put me in a place where it made me understand speak it into existence. Because from the time I called him when I was in that maybe 8th or 9th grade, I don't know I don't really remember that well, but from the time I called him to then, to that little meeting with Chuck taking me to Daddy's house, to working with Divine in Atlanta, and Divine being his choreographer and Pa just playing music, you know, to see what he would think. And then for him to be like, "Yo, who's helping you do this?" Like, and for Divine to plug it the way he plugged it. And then I end up in the same room with him where I do have his attention. And now he can hear that 8th, 9th grader with 100 rhymes or 200 rhymes or whatever. But now he can hear it the way he's supposed to hear it. You gotta speak it into existence. You have to, no matter when you start speaking it, and don't ever be silenced. Just keep speaking it into existence. And it's funny, I've never told anybody this story. And I'm just saying it on camera, like I've never told anybody these stories. But if you get anything out of it, speak it into existence.